I'm Gwen Eiffel. Welcome to the Washington Week Webcast Extra. I'm joined around the table by Chuck Babington of the Associated Press, Janet Hook of the Wall Street Journal, Jim Tankersley of the Washington Post, and Alexis Simendinger of Real Clear Politics. Every single one of you I've known working for other news organizations, so I always have to hesitate before I say who you work for. Anyway, there was this awkward moment during Friday's joint White House news conference with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, when President Obama took pains to offer public reassurance that the U.S. is no longer spying on Merkel or more widely on the German people.
Angela Merkel is one of my closest friends on the world stage, and somebody whose partnership I deeply value. And so it has pained me to see the degree to which the Snowden disclosures have created strains in the relationship. These are complicated issues, and we're not perfectly aligned yet, but we share the same values and we share the same concerns.
Not perfectly aligned seems to be an understatement because Merkel was neither as warm or as reassuring. In words and body language, it seemed like they were almost at odds, Alexis.
It was a very warm rose garden that got very chilly all of a sudden in this discussion. So this has been going on, as you know, since the revelations from Edward Snowden last year. And for a time, I think the administration thought that it could smooth this over with Germany. But as we have seen, Chancellor Merkel has gotten a lot of pressure at home and feels very pressured herself because of German law. It's illegal in Germany to espionage is against the law, and what the Germans are asking the United States for is kind of a mix of things. Include us in the Five Eyes, which is the community of nations that share all intelligence, but also don't do any spying or espionage or surveillance on German soil, meaning don't do it where you're doing it, where the NSA and the CIA are doing it, which is in the U.S. Embassy in Berlin. And what President Obama said today in the Rose Garden is that we don't promise that to any nation.
That's what I heard, yeah.
Yes, we don't give that to any nation, and we'll talk about this and try to close the gap, as you could see. So the two of them basically today did not achieve what Chancellor Merkel had hoped.
And for her domestic needs, it is not in her interest to compromise on this in this kind of setting, is it?
She would have her head handed to her at home. This is a very concerning issue in Germany in a way that maybe we in the United States overlook. And as we know, Chancellor Merkel herself remembers growing up in Eastern Germany during the Stasi era, and she takes this very seriously. And we know she found out, and you can understand this on a human level, that the United States was eavesdropping on her cell phone for what amounted to 10 years before she knew about it.
Well, there's no question that this is going to remain a sore spot. I want to talk to you, Janet, about some other stuff that was in your poll this week, because we always talk about the top line stories: approval, disapproval, foreign policy, yes, no. But you actually had some interesting questions and answers that told us a little bit about Americans and about the way we live.
Yeah, we actually asked some kind of lifestyle questions that we were able to compare to 15 years ago in 1999. And they focused on how much time and what people do in online activity. Do you belong to do you have a social media profile? Do you shop online? Do you pay your bills online? And you know what? A lot of people do these days. What do you know? But the thing that's really interesting is that everybody thought that because we were spending more time online, we were not doing as much communication with each other face to face.
That's my experience.
Okay, well, you know what we found is that people were having family dinners as much as they did 15 years ago before Facebook was founded. And they claim to know their neighbors about at the same level, so that there had been this anxiety that, we just all kind of turn inward if we're on our phones and Facebook. And this data suggests that that's not the case.
Or at least we shouldn't be as worried that if the teenager doesn't come down to dinner right away, they'll come down eventually.
Yeah,
when they get hungry.
Oh, and
live with you till you're 30.
Here's my favorite finding, though. We asked about reading newspapers, and predictably, the reading newspapers on paper form had plummeted to like under 50%. But the good news is when they asked the question, Do you read a newspaper at least 3 times a week online or in print? It's back up to just about the same levels as it was in 1999 in print. So there. So
That's
people
great.
are still reading us, just online.
I will remain a print dinosaur. I'm sorry. That's just who I am. Tankersley, I want to ask you about jobs, but this time I want to ask you about summer jobs. As we're heading into summer job season, and these teenagers, when they come downstairs, we're hoping they keep walking out the door and get a job.
Right.
Does it look different?
It looks different from when any of us here at this table were kids looking for summer jobs. We had a great piece at the Post this week by Lydia DePillis, where she went down to North Carolina to
the center of the universe.
Right, to the center of the universe, and to illustrate some amazing new data that Brookings has done. And the data show that it's just a lot harder for teenagers to get summer jobs now, or just any teenagers to work, period, if you're 16 to 19 years old. And one of the big reasons why is that adults are taking what used to be teenage jobs, and that's a ripple effect of the bad labor market. So if people who are trying to provide for a family are working at fast food places, then there's not as much for teenagers there. Here's the other thing that was really interesting to me from that story. There are some jobs for teenagers, but they tend to be in places where the kids who we probably want to have jobs the most don't think to look. So kids from like lower income or middle class kids aren't necessarily applying at the country club where there are still a lot of jobs, or in sort of other kind of.
And they're likely to be hired?
They probably wouldn't be. These are like social networky, but like not online social network, but like you get to know your parents' friends and they hire you to wait tables at the country club or whatever. And there are still jobs in those places, but just a lot of teenagers can't or won't look for them there.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay, Chuck, let's talk about some more summer stuff, this time summer politics. We were talking in the regular show about what was happening in North Carolina, but it turns out that there are a lot of runoffs which could occupy our summer in some of these key races.
Right. In a lot of these Senate races, there very well could be runoffs, almost certainly will be in Georgia because it's a very crowded Republican primary there.
Remind us again who's involved?
Oh my gosh! Well, you got 3 members of the House there that are Phil Gingrey.
Now that I put you on the spot.
I know. Now I'm like Rick Perry,
right,
and Jack Kingston,
and Tom Price.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom Price.
Not Tom Price.
Okay, not Tom Price. No. Who was the third person?
There's some Paul Brown.
Oh, of course, Paul Brown.
Paul Brown.
Gingrey.
Okay.
Kingston. Anyway.
All right. Anyway, so they're all running
and several others, right? And who might even fill it at the top. And Michelle Nunn, the Democrat, is sort of waiting in the wings there. The problem with runoff, the reason you don't want to get in a runoff is it makes you spend more money.
Because people can't remember who's running, but go ahead.
Exactly. That's a big problem. It might help you there. You're going to spend more money not against the person you want to use it against, who's your general election opponent in November, but against somebody from your own party. And you keep getting beat up by your own party rather than going head to head with the other person. The other thing is some of these runoffs, if we have them, will be in the dead of summer. Like the one in North Carolina would be July 15th. An awful lot of people are on vacation. They're just not paying attention to politics. So you have the potential for a very small turnout.
Texas too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Very small turnout. And then that makes things more unpredictable. And one thing we know with both parties is the people who always vote are the ideological people. So Democrats, that's to the left. Republicans, that's very much to the right. So you can get, if you really get a small turnout, a really a greater proportional input by, say, Tea Party types, and it makes it a little less predictable. The establishment does not like that.
Of course. Well, then they'll have to do what they can to make sure that it all gets settled in the spring.
Next time I'm going to write all those names out on my paper.
Well, you don't have to. Well, between all of us at the table, we can actually come up with all the names. Thank you all crowdsource the names. Exactly. Thank you, everybody. Stay online at pbs.org/Washington Week to see what else our panelists are covering. We call it our Essential Reads. All the names are there. Also, you can see my take this week about the dangers of overreaching. And we'll see you next time on the Washington Week Webcast Extra.